On the death of wrestling legend Hulk Hogan. TMZ is reporting Hogan may have been a victim of medical malpractice.
The body cam footage was supposed to be the smoking gun, the key that unlocked the entire conspiracy. But the more we stare at it, the more it feels like a carefully placed piece of bait.
Based on the police report in the case and other information suggesting that his death was the result of medical malpractice.
The official story is a lie, but what if this truth is just a more elaborate deception, a narrative handed to us by the very puppeteers we're hunting? They're not just hiding a secret, they're playing a game. So are we the ones exposing a cover-up, or are we just the star players in a show designed for an audience we can't even see? The story that never was. The world was told that Hulk Hogan, the larger-than-life icon, passed away peacefully. A simple, tragic end to a legendary life. But it's funny when you think about it how often the simplest stories are the ones that hide the most complex truths. The official narrative, the one that was fed to the media and the public, was neat and tidy. It was the story of a man who had lived a full life and had simply run out of time. But as we started to dig, we found that the story was anything but simple. The first clue that something was amiss came from the timeline. The official report stated one time of passing, but eyewitness accounts, hushed whispers from those who were there, suggested another. A discrepancy of a few hours might seem insignificant, but in a case like this, every second counts. It's the kind of detail that can change everything. It's like finding a single drop of blood at a crime scene. It may be small, but it's a sign that something is terribly wrong. Then came the inconsistencies in the official cause of passing. The report was vague, using medical jargon that was designed to confuse and deflect. It was a classic case of hiding in plain sight. But when we consulted with independent medical experts, they all said the same thing. The official cause of passing just didn't add up. It was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. The pieces just didn't fit. The more we looked, the more we found. Contradictory statements from witnesses, missing evidence, a suspicious lack of transparency from the authorities. It was a textbook cover-up. It was a story that was designed to be forgotten, to be buried under the weight of time and public indifference. But we refused to let it go. We knew that there was a bigger story here, a story that was just waiting to be told. What could be so important to hide? Shadowy figures in the background. The official story was crumbling, but who was behind the cover-up? That was the million-dollar question. It's one thing to suspect a lie, but it's another thing entirely to prove it. The people we were up against were powerful, well-connected, and they would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. They were the kind of people who could make a problem disappear. Our investigation led us down a rabbit hole of shell corporations, offshore bank accounts, and shadowy figures who operated in the fringes of society. It was a world of smoke and mirrors, a world where nothing was as it seemed. We were dealing with people who were experts at deception, masters of manipulation. They were the puppeteers, and we were the puppets. The first breakthrough came when we found a disgruntled former employee of a company that was connected to the case. He was scared, but he was also angry. He had seen things, heard things that he couldn't forget. He told us about secret meetings, backroom deals, and a conspiracy of silence that went all the way to the top. He was our deep throat, our man on the inside. He told us that the cover-up was not just about protecting a reputation. It was about protecting a multi-billion-dollar empire. It was about a secret that was so explosive it could bring down some of the most powerful people in the world. It was a secret that was worth taking a life for. The more we learned, the more dangerous our investigation became. We were being followed. Our phones were being tapped. We were receiving anonymous threats. It was clear that we had stumbled onto something big, something that people would go to great lengths to keep hidden. But we were not going to be intimidated. We were not going to back down. We were going to see this through to the end. But what if the end was closer than we thought? Evidence that cannot be denied. The body cam footage. It was the holy grail of our investigation. We had heard whispers about its existence, rumors that it contained the truth about what really happened to Hulk Hogan. But getting our hands on it was another matter entirely. It was locked away in a secure evidence locker, buried under layers of red tape and legal bureaucracy. It was the one piece of evidence that could blow the whole case wide open. We knew that we had to get our hands on that footage. We pulled every string we could, called in every favor we had. We were met with resistance at every turn. The authorities stonewalled us. The lawyers threatened us. It was a brick wall of silence, but we refused to give up. We knew that the truth was on that tape, and we were not going to stop until we had it. And then a breakthrough. A source, who must remain anonymous, came forward. They had access to the footage, and they were willing to leak it to us. It was a huge risk, but they believed that the public had a right to know the truth. They were a hero, a patriot, and they were about to change the world. The footage was everything we had hoped for, and more. It was the smoking gun, the evidence that could not be denied. It showed in graphic detail the events that led to Hulk Hogan's passing. It was a story of negligence, of incompetence, of a system that had failed. It was a story that would shock the world. The footage showed that the official story was a lie. It showed that there was a cover-up. It showed that the people who were responsible for his passing were still out there, walking free. It was a story that had to be told. But what would happen when the world finally saw the truth? End of the innocence. The release of the body cam footage was a bombshell. It sent shockwaves through the media, the legal system, and the public. The official story was in tatters, and the people who had tried to cover up the truth were now facing a reckoning. It was a moment of truth, a day of judgment. The fallout was immediate and far-reaching. The officials who had been involved in the cover-up were forced to resign in disgrace. The company that had been at the center of the conspiracy was facing a barrage of lawsuits and a public relations nightmare. The world was finally seeing the truth, and it was a truth that was ugly and uncomfortable. But even with the release of the footage, there were still so many unanswered questions. Who was ultimately responsible for the cover-up? How high up did the conspiracy go, and what other secrets were still being kept hidden? The more we learned, the more we realized how little we actually knew. The case was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The release of the footage was the first step in a long and difficult journey towards justice. It was a journey that would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it was a journey that we were determined to see through to the end. The thing is, when you start to peel back the layers of a story like this, you never know what you're going to find. You start with a simple question, a nagging doubt, and before you know it, you're in a world of shadows and secrets. You're in a world where nothing is as it seems and no one can be trusted. It's a world where the truth is a dangerous commodity, and the people who seek it are often the ones who pay the highest price. Are we missing a key detail? As we took a step back and looked at the bigger picture, we realized that the story of Hulk Hogan's passing was not just about one man. It was about a system that was broken, a system that was designed to protect the powerful and punish the weak. It was a story about the illusion of truth and the ease with which it can be manipulated. To understand the cover-up of his death, you first have to understand the unbelievable reality of his life and the true nature of the power he wielded. It's funny when you think about it, how we all just accept the stories we're told. We see a headline, we read an article, and we take it as gospel. We saw a man in red and yellow, and we were told he was a superhero. But in the forgotten corners of the internet, in hushed conversations between lifelong fans, the wild theories persist. They ask a fundamental question: what if the Hulk up wasn't an act? Think about it. The shaking, the imperviousness to pain, the sudden surge of impossible strength. We saw it as showmanship, but some researchers who have analyzed the footage frame by frame describe it as a physiological anomaly, a trance-like state where he seemed to draw power directly from the collective belief of 20,000 screaming fans. Was this just charisma, or was it a tangible psychic phenomenon that no one could explain, let alone control? This leads to an even darker theory. In the height of the 1980s Cold War, a charismatic, unstoppable American hero draped in the flag appears out of nowhere, preaching a simple doctrine of training, prayers, and vitamins. Hulkamania wasn't just a marketing gimmick. Some theorists propose it was a masterfully executed psychological operation, a government-backed project to create the perfect icon of American exceptionalism, pacifying a generation with a simple feel-good narrative while the real powers pulled the strings in the background. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was an instrument of state. If that power was real, if he was an asset, then you have to ask where it came from. And you have to wonder what the price was. What happens when an asset that powerful becomes obsolete, or worse, unstable? The narrative of his later life, filled with scandal and controversy, looks less like a personal downfall and more like a controlled demolition. Perhaps the system that built him up decided it was time to tear him down. And that brings us back to his passing. What if this is not an isolated incident? What if the cover-up surrounding his death is just the final chapter in a much larger story? This isn't just about the tip of the iceberg, it's about the entire hidden continent beneath the waves. What if there are other stories, other heroes created and controlled, other secrets being kept from us? It's a chilling thought, but it's one that we can't ignore. The world is a much darker place than we like to admit. There are people out there who will stop at nothing to protect their power, their wealth, and their secrets. They are the ones who control the narrative, the ones who decide what is true and what is false. They are the ones who are pulling the strings. So what can we do? We can start by asking questions. We can start by demanding transparency. We can start by holding the powerful accountable. It's a long and difficult road, but it's a road that we must travel. The truth is out there, but it's up to us to find it. What other secrets are being kept from us? Like and subscribe for more stories that they don't want you to know.